Hey everybody, I am joined today by one of my favorite people on the YouTubes, on the internet just in general, someone who I've wanted to have a hangout with and just talk about all kinds of stuff with for a long time, and I'm so happy that we're finally getting to do it. Everybody, say hi to FoxyJazzabelle. Foxy, how's it going?
Hi, everybody. It's going good. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm doing really great. I'm doing really great, and I'm glad that we're doing this. We were
Nice
having
shirt.
Thank you. It was a Batman kind of day.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, and I always wear a Batman watch, so it's always a Batman. It's always bat time.
What time is it? It's always bat time.
It's bat time.
Oh, did you see the trailers for the Lego Batman movie? Oh my
Yes.
God. I think that may be the Lego movie that I actually see. Because at first I was like, oh, it's just some kid stuff. And then one of my partners sent me the links for it, and I watched it while I was at work, and it took everything in me to just not laugh out loud at my desk, because I was just like, oh my God.
It's one of those things, like, because the trailers for that Batman Lego movie have been so great, and then like the DC TV stuff right now is pretty good too, like the Flash and Arrow and Supergirl. Like, I'm really liking all of that, and it's like, how can they get all of that stuff like so completely right? And then it's taken them, like, they're on their third try basically to get the movies right, with like Wonder Woman and Justice League, after completely screwing it up in the minds of many people anyway, with Man of Steel and Justice League, or with Man of Steel and Batman v Superman.
It seems like Marvel and DC go through this thing where every couple of years or so, between their movies division and their television stuff will be off. Like Marvel cartoons, like Marvel animated stuff won't be the best, but DC animated stuff will be the best. Of course, I watched 90s X-Men. I even watched 90s Spider-Man.
Oh, me too.
Even though, with the corny, they tried to make it sort of like with 3D and stuff like that, make it 2D with 3D within 2D, but and of course, like I said, I watched the X-Men animation, and those two were great. But I mean, if there was ever any animation where I'd be like playing outside and then I look at the time, it would be Batman the Animated Series. Like, I'm just going to stop what I'm doing outside and it's like, hey, guys, it's time. I got to run upstairs because I got to watch Power Rangers, and then I got to watch Batman the Animated Series. So I'll see y'all later. So I'll just come upstairs.
Yeah, I was the same way. It was like the thing that I never, ever missed.
But yeah, Marvel and DC, they go through these phases where their animated stuff isn't doing so great, but then maybe their cinematic stuff does good.
Yeah.
Because it took a while. At first it was DC. DC, their cinematic stuff was holding up a lot, and Marvel's was just bad until they did Blade. I think people forget like the actual start of when Marvel movies actually started being good. Was when they made the first Blade, and it was the first time that a character from a comic book movie was done well, and that was a rated R movie that did really well. So people seem to forget that. I know people like to think that that Marvel movies started getting better with Iron Man, which it did. It's like the predecessor for the Avengers and stuff like that. Yeah. But that was really the point where people were like, comic book movies with Marvel characters, okay, they actually can be good.
They usually dated back to the first X-Men movie in 2000, but I think you're right. I think Blade actually deserves more credit than it gets.
Yeah.
Especially since Blade was such an obscure character for a lot of people. And if you weren't like a comic fan, you probably didn't know who Blade was.
I remembered vaguely because there was a time when where they had him in the Spider-Man 90s series, but it was a white character.
I remember that.
Like he was a white guy with like, brown, close crew cut hair or whatever. And then when you saw Blade, it's this, ultra chocolate black dude with the swords and tattoos, and it was really not here for anybody's shit. And it was just fabulous, and it fit Wesley Snipes so well. And part of me thinks that maybe that movie doesn't get remembered as much because of the movies that came after it. You know, which I actually like Blade 2.
Yeah, I like Blade 2
I
too.
pretty much acknowledge only the first 2 Blade movies. With
Yeah.
me, there was no third movie.
Yeah,
I know there was, but to me, there really wasn't.
The third one, I wasn't crazy about the third one either. But yeah, I don't talk about them much. And actually, I'm glad you brought it up because I don't even really think about them all that much. But I really enjoy both of them. I mean, they were the thing that I liked about them, and the thing that I think, if there was any sort of influence from the Blade movies to the later Marvel movies, any sort of lessons that they took, it's that they were funny. You know, like Blade was a badass and he was a fighter and there were great action scenes, but they were also funny. Like Blade was really funny.
Yeah,
And
he had it. See, he wasn't like all serious. He had this, you know, he was pretty funny.
I love he had one of my favorite like great action movie lines of anything. I think it was in the first one where he's squaring off with a guy to have a fight. And he looks at him and he says, "There's always some motherfucker trying to ice skate uphill."
Yeah, some other.
I love that.
Always trying to ice skate uphill. Yeah,
I love that. So before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about Zack Snyder and his penchant for having a whole bunch of destruction in his movies, even if it doesn't really reflect well on his characters.
It sort of reminds me of Captain America: Civil War, actually, and that you know, when there are people who are, you know, have superpowers or enhanced or what have you, and those who rise up to fight against them, you know, when they fight, it's not always clean. There's always going to be collateral damage.
Yeah.
And so I think people get that. And I think we get that too. At the same time, I think that sometimes some directors go a bit overboard with it. Yes, there's, you know, yes, Zack Snyder, we get it. There's definitely collateral damage when people try to do good and keep the world safe and everything like that, you know. So I get the notion of heroes fighting where people are,
right?
You know, and you can't always, you know, predict where evil's gonna pop up. You know, I don't think anyone who's like really twisted is going to be like, hey, what? And you're like, hey, why don't we go to this abandoned place over here so that, you know, nobody gets hurt? If the villain doesn't really give a fuck about human life, it's like, they're like, what? Yeah. And in fact, that's just like another thing that they could use against you. Like, oh, so you actually care if I, you know, shoot this laser through this building and just vaporize all these people? Like, what? Okay, then I'm just going to do that.
Well, yeah, it's like what General Zod did in Superman 2, you know?
Like, you care for these humans.
Yeah. And then Superman said, don't do it, the people. And you can't really imagine the Zack Snyder version of Superman saying that.
Yeah, it's like, that's why, you know, when he was about to vaporize those people in the museum and Cal's like, don't do, like, no, Zod, don't do it. And he's just like, nope, fuck him. Fuck until he gets his neck snapped. And
then and you're just like, well, why couldn't you give a shit before this, Superman? Like all of this. Since when do you care about people?
Yeah, like, well, didn't you think, like, man, maybe I shouldn't have thrown Zod into this occupied building, especially given how strong we both are. We could really fuck some shit up.
Maybe I should fly him into space or something.
Yeah, like do what the comic book Superman does. Like, you know, throw that fucker into the sun or something.
Fly him to Antarctica. I mean,
or something like that. Yeah, like, hey, I can actually throw this guy so far that we could be on the other side of the country. Why not do that?
You know, that speaking of stuff that like the Marvel movies have been getting right and that the DC movies have been getting wrong lately, one of my favorite things about Captain America Civil War was what you referenced a minute ago, that they took that that aspect of superheroes, where if you're going to try to deal with it realistically, you're going to have to acknowledge that there will always be collateral damage. You know,
Yeah.
even if the superheroes don't, even if they try not to, they're always going to end up hurting someone that they don't mean to hurt, just because of what they do and because of what the bad guys do.
Yeah.
And Captain America Civil War, they made that a very, very important part of what the movie was about.
Yeah.
Like, they addressed it. They said, okay, we're going to acknowledge that this happens when we put these characters in these situations, and we're going to make this important to the story. Whereas in the DC movies, it seems like in Man of Steel, Zack Snyder didn't care about it at all.
Yeah, it was more like an afterthought, if they thought about it at all.
And then in Batman v Superman, he addressed it by throwing in a line of dialogue where somebody said, oh yeah, this part of the city has been abandoned. You know, so that was kind of an afterthought too. Like, it was better. It's okay. I'm glad that you're establishing that they're fighting in a part where there aren't innocent people around. But, you know, you compare how that was handled to how it was taken much more seriously in the Marvel movie.
Yeah,
you know,
it seems like the only person who actually sort of cared about that again was Bruce Wayne.
So let's make a hard, sharp turn here and start talking about politics, because I could like just nerd out with you for like hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, I get the feeling we really could.
Yeah, it would just last forever. And I think what's cool is I think we're interested in different shit. So, like, you know, we could each just sort of take turns talking about the nerdy shit that we like. But have you been watching the Democratic convention? Have you had a chance to catch any of it?
I missed Uncle Joe speaking last night, so I had to catch up with him.
Yeah, I want to try to catch that.
I woke up just in time to hear Obama's.
Oh, what did you think of the Obama speech?
I have a love side-eye relationship with Obama. Let me explain that. I thought his speech was very good. It was very good with like some moments, sprinkles of what the fuck. You know, so I thought it was very good. He's always been a good speaker. Always been a good speaker.
Yeah. And
the thing I like the most about his speech, and of course, when Michelle spoke the other day, is like how they were able to shade Donald Trump so well.
Yeah.
I mean, Michelle did it and didn't even like mention his name. That's how you know you're good. That's how you know a person's good at like shading somebody else. They don't even have to mention the other person's name and just lay it on, and you know who the fuck they're talking about. They don't have to say the person's name. You just know, and you're just like, But Obama was much more straightforward with it, and it was just like, I was like,
Yeah.
Like, this is the type of person you get when it's like, listen, motherfuckers, I'm pretty much out the door already. I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to put it out there. But there were moments in the speech where I know for him it's expected, especially being the type of person that he is, with the type of perspective that he has. It just doesn't sit with me well, you know, because I think even with what he's been through, with so much opposition from the Republicans and stuff like that, I think it opened his eyes, but I don't think it really did so enough as far as the type of, you know, as far as the type of, I guess, where his political lens lies, you know, because he's very much still, you know, the neoliberal, you know, American exceptionalism, work hard, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, you know, lift yourself up by your bootstraps, sort of political figure, you know. And it's not surprising because he sort of, you know, he grew up in a time when that's the type of rhetoric that, you know, that was really expected of Black people, Black Americans and stuff, you know, like, yes, there are these problems, but, you know, don't let that be an excuse, you know, work hard and and, do what you have to do, and, prove the country wrong, show them that you are not what they stereotype you as. And I think a lot more Black Americans have a problem with that, because that type of rhetoric really hasn't gotten us anywhere.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed the idea of us. That still comes to mind when people think Black Americans or Black people, period. It's no matter how much we go out of our way to be respectable, we still aren't given that full respect.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I guess
I find it hard, and I turn a side eye when he does things, or when he says things like the equivalency that he made to, the mother who worries about, her Black son going out the door, to when, a police officer's family worries about them as they go out to do their job. So it's like, wait a second. So the lives of Black boys, Black people who get killed is being put on the pedestal of, the people who are in power, the people who are most likely to kill them. And that really stung. I mean, it was expected, because of the way that he is, how he tries to, really continue to perpetuate and push the idea of, of a unified America, as we, always trying to find that common ground, basically doing what sometimes you see a lot of white people do when it comes to like race issues, and some white feminists do when it comes to dealing with feminists of color, trying to universalize all of our issues, so that we can have to make it seem like, oh, well, our issues, their issues are sort of the same as the issues that the issues that this group has are the same as this group, and so on and so on. And it's like, no, it's not. And it's not bad to say that either. It's not bad. It's not a bad thing to admit that, yes, police have been put in this position where now they're just, there's this idea of being afraid of Black, to the point of just shooting and not thinking about it and getting off with impunity. Like all of the officers in the Freddie Gray case. Yeah. They were no charges were brought up against all of them, even though the coroner, in the reports, it was still ruled as a homicide. And the same thing with Eric Garner. Their deaths were ruled as homicides, so they were killed, but no charges for any of the officers who killed them. So
there was a moment in Bill Clinton's speech this week that I felt like he hit a similar note to the one you're talking about in Obama's speech, where, in Clinton's speech, I think it was even worse, because there was a line where he was addressing Black folks. Mm-hmm. And he was saying like, if you're a young Black person and you're afraid of what's going to happen to you or to your family, if you're afraid of being a victim of violence, and it was something like, join with us, join our campaign, elect Hillary, and show everybody that, we can protect the lives of everybody, including those that wear blue.
Yeah. And
I thought that's like the worst. Yeah, that's a really wrong note to hit, because you're talking to Black folks who are worried about being victims of violence. And then you're telling them, let's show everybody that we can protect everybody, including the cops, when the cops are the source of a lot of the anxiety.
Yeah. And on top of that, it was thanks to his 1994 crime bill that increased resources to policing, that started, the militarizing of the police and the prison industrial complex, harsher sentencing for people, which always disproportionately affects, people of color. Yeah. And it's like, it's so weird to hear him, not even weird. It's like I was giving side eyes to him too. And it's like, dude, the legislation that you enacted while you were president is the reason, was it laid down the blueprint for all the shit that's happening now. And the same thing with Hillary when she was senator of New York. So, I mean, what?
Yeah.
In regards to Obama's speech and with Bill Clinton's speech, there were good things in it, but if you know the history of their voting record and the repercussions of the things that they've done and enacted, you're sort of like,
Yeah. I have
you know?
I have a similar feeling. I mean, my relationship with Obama, I wouldn't quite call it love hate or love side eye, but I admire him so much, and I want to admire him so much that, like, when he does something that is inconsistent with, my preferred version of him, it's sort of like, you know what I mean?
Hard.
Like,
because I know, especially with a lot of people, it's like, yes, he is this, you want to idolize, like you said, you want to idolize the man, but then certain things that have been done under his administration, like with, deportation of people, mass deportation of immigrants, and, the whole drone situation, which personally, me at the time when the stuff started coming out, I understood. I'm really the type of person where it's like, I don't like that we muck around and fuck around in other places.
Right.
At the same time, if we are, technically, if we are still at war with people, there's always going to be collateral damage, but I understand the concerns of people, especially when we started moving more into like just, drone warfare. And the collateral damage that results from that, and then to get word that more of that stuff happened, like recently, like maybe a couple of days to like a week ago, and you see the footage of people who were either badly injured or were killed. I don't know the full story. So I'm not going to be like, oh my God, damn it, Obama, I can't fully judge until I get the full story. Yeah. But things like that definitely make it hard. You can't just idolize someone blindly, you know what I mean?
No.
So, I mean, and even though, like I said on Twitter, as much issue as I have with him, I really don't want him to go. I really don't want the Obamas to go, because it's like we really don't have we have a choice between shit that smells bad and just a pile of like utter, sewage that hasn't been treated yet.
Yeah.
And it's just this election cycle just really, really sucks. I like that he definitely, tried to reach out to people who are not really psyched about voting for Hillary. I think he reached out to them. I think he reached out to, the Bernie bros, and other people who are sort of like out on the sidelines. He definitely hit Republicans where it hurts. He definitely hit Donald Trump where it hurts. Especially saying to people, telling them to not just get involved with presidential elections, but, get more involved in local politics. And that's something that me personally, that I've definitely, I definitely agree with that, because I think a lot of people focus too much on presidential elections, and those happen every 4 to 8 years. Meanwhile, the stuff that really affects our daily lives is on the city and state level. Our Congress people, our senators, attorney generals, judges, county clerks, things like that, because the people who end up running for Congress and the Senate and, Supreme Court, and even for president, they get their start in, local government. So you really have to pay attention to who's coming up. and see what their voting records are. You know, did they vote for more gerrymandering after, you know, pre-clearance was struck out of the Voting Rights Act? You know, did they vote for, you know, all these fucking, you know, right to life amendments, you know, these anti-abortion amendments and shit like that? You know, how much money do they receive from the NRA, if they receive any money? You know, things like that. I don't think people pay as enough attention to that stuff as they should, you know,
no.
because it's, you know, and plus we have to remember from, you know, from 11th grade United States history and government, you know, the president can only do so much. He's not an emperor. This is not a monarchy. Fucking, there are other branches of government that you need to pay attention to, and you need to know what they do. And so if they enact things that are not in your best interest but in theirs, you need to vote them the fuck out, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely for that, but I also understand how tired people are of the system, and, you know, seeing how rigged it is. I've always been a proponent of learn the rules so that you can learn when to bend them and break them. I've always been a big proponent of that. At the same time, I also understand why people don't want to bother with the system to begin with. But again, I'm also a fan of knowledge. You know, you can say the system is broken or rigged, and it is. But if you don't know how it's in the ways in which it is broken or which it is rigged, you don't really have much going.
I think this was really canny of Obama in his speech. I wanted to bring this up too. When he talked about Trump, he somehow managed to send the message that we have to defeat Donald Trump without scaring the shit out of everybody.
Yeah, exactly. He did that too. Yeah.
He made it like a philosophical thing. You know, he didn't say, if you vote for Donald Trump and he becomes the president, our empire will fall and there will be riots in the streets. He said, what will it say about us as a country, as a people, if we choose a man like this to be our leader? And I think that's a much smarter way to do it, because then he's not fear mongering. He's not doing what Trump did and saying, you know, there's immigrants running over the border and there's Muslims coming to the country to kill us. And
you know, and they're all rapists. And I alone will solve the problems in this country.
Right.
I can tell you that.
Right. I mean, Trump's message was everything's going to hell and I'm the only one who can save you. And
yes.
And Obama's message.
And by the way, yes, we must make sure that our inner cities are taken care of, and make sure that we take care of our LGBTQ. And it's like, oh my God, Donald is saying all these things, and it's like, motherfucker, where is it? It's like, motherfucker, I have the 2016 platform right here. It's a lie. These are all lies.
Well, the thing that struck me, because everybody made a big deal about, you know, Republicans and Democrats both mentioned how he mentioned LGBTQ in the speech, and they were like, you know, Republican presidential nominee, like, acknowledged the existence of LGBTQ people.
Oh. Wow.
And I thought, you know, because when he said it, he said, you know, we have to protect our LGBTQ people against people who want to do them harm. And like, to me, that's clearly another dog whistle about, oh, the Muslims are coming, and the Muslims hate gay people, and the Muslims hate trans people. So, you know, all you gay and trans folks, if you want protection, you better come to the Republicans, because we'll fight. And I thought, he's such an asshole. He can't even reach out to LGBTQ people without.
It can't be like, you know, like not even a backhanded slap, just like a double slap or whatever. It can't be like in good faith. Like, no. Hey, if you know, we're the party, you know, remember, we're the party that freed the slaves. So what do you think we can do for you guys?
Yeah.
And, you know, even though that would sort of count as a double slap too. But yeah, like, It's always gonna be like, hey, we gotta make sure. Hey, listen, you guys, if what will happen if we let these refugees over here? They're gonna kill you guys. So look, if you want to be protected, you need to come over to our side.
Yeah.
I guarantee we will protect you.
We're gonna start a war. It's gonna be the best war you've ever seen.
That's right. Don't mail. He's like a bully that's like, like say it. That's right. Say it. Say our name. Say it once. Say it 3 times and see if we don't come over and bomb all you motherfuckers. I mean, even though technically we wouldn't need him to do that because that's basically been the our MO for a while. It's like, like Cat Williams said in the comedy special, he's like, yo, US, we're a bunch of gangsters. We're like, yeah, say it. Say our name, bitch. Say it. Say it 2 times. Say it 3 times. And see if we don't come over there and bomb everybody. I mean, that's basically.
Yeah, that's not even a change in policy.
And that's not to say that I don't think some of the stuff that we've done wasn't necessary. I mean, like, as soon as word hit out about Osama bin Laden, I was just like, yo, Obama is a cold motherfucker. Like, yo, like, he didn't give it. He's like, listen, as soon as they were like, sir, we found him. What he wants to do. What should we do, Hillary? Get that motherfucker. All right, go ahead.
Oh God, I hope that's how it went. Well, the thing that irritates.
I hope he looked at her, or at least like something out of 300, where Obama looked at Hillary, and then like he looked at Michelle, like Leonidas looked at Gogo, and Michelle was like, and he was like, all right, get that motherfucker.
The thing about that stuff that really drives me crazy, though, because like that sort of thing, not necessarily getting bin Laden, because I think he didn't really catch a lot of shit for, for the killing of bin Laden, but, like the military stuff, like the drone strikes and generally sort of trying to scale back U.S. involvement, but also staying involved. Like a lot of people on the left were like, oh, we're not cool with that. But, he does that sort of thing that kind of gets his liberal allies to be a little disappointed in him and to be like, we wish you wouldn't do that. But it doesn't get him anything from the other side. Like, the guy was president when Osama bin Laden was killed, and Republicans gave him nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like nothing.
He conceded so much to these motherfuckers, thinking that, all I gotta do is just I gotta be the logical one at the table and be willing to compromise and yada yada yada. And the Republicans were like, oh yeah, compromise all you want. We still ain't giving you shit.
Yeah.
And and that's another thing that he still stressed in his speech. That's why I was saying earlier that, like, for all that he's fucking been through with the Republicans, and he still sort of stresses this whole, you gotta be willing to compromise and da 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 da. And it's like, these motherfuckers made shit so hard for you, and basically took your ass for a ride.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're gone. Like, they're still there. They're still there. I mean, granted, because, liberals who were disillusioned didn't show up for the midterms, which is completely their fault. I talk about that I bring that up a lot when I talk about, people going to vote. And, there was a Tea Party guy who was on Real Time a couple of years ago. And he was just like, he said something that was true. He said that government goes to the people who shows up.
Yeah.
And we all know that the Republicans and Tea Partiers or what have you, they know how to rile up and inspire their base to show up. And that's what happened. And that's why we have the Congress and the Senate that we have now.
You can't just go out and demonstrate and make noise and say, we want to change things. Like, fuck yeah, let's change them. But you got to show up, you got to
show up. You have to get involved. You have to, and that's one thing I'll say about the Black Lives Matter movement. It's an actual activist movement.
Yeah.
You know, they don't just march, they don't just agitate, they get involved on a local level, you know, that is pretty much where the problem is. It's not just about revolution, you know what I mean? You know, of course you are, everybody is frustrated with the system and how it is, and everyone wants to break it down and deconstruct it. Okay, that's fine, that's great. I'm definitely for that. Do you know enough about the system to be like, okay, we got to break some things? Because I am all for deconstructing shit and building it up together again. You know, some people they just want to throw systems totally out the window and for, you know, there to be anarchy or whatever. That's great and everything, but what's going to come after that? It's sort of like, you know, when the GOP is like, we're definitely going to, you know, repeal Obamacare. Yeah, even if that were possible, what the fuck are you guys going to replace it with?
Exactly. Then what?
That's one thing I think Obama sort of gets wrong about Black Lives Matter. I think he thinks that they're too focused on revolution and not about getting involved with city politics. But if you read their 10-point plan, if you look it up and see what they're about, that is all about changing things on a systemic level, you know, from, you know, local, city, state. That's what that's about. They're not just asking for revolution or demanding it or whatever. Like, they make it plain, like, what they want. They want officers to be held accountable. They want, you know, body cams on police officers. They want specific concrete things, which takes getting involved in, you know, local politics. So it's not like they're just, you know, sitting around like, you know, some progressives, you know, demanding, you know, that shit just change and just a revolution and stuff like that. I'm all for revolutions. What the fuck do y'all want? How are y'all gonna get it? Do you know enough about this system to actually break it? Or are you just mad and just want to break shit and not think about what comes next? You know, so yeah, like I said, I definitely had a love side eye thing with his speech, but overall it was good. I think he set out to do what he wanted to do. It was, you know, he gave his reasons why he thinks Hillary is good. He gives his take on, you know, how things have been, you know, with the theme of change. He lays out, like you said, a more philosophical position on why Donald Trump should not be president and what that would say about us. And I think it was also good as, you know, as a goodbye, as like his goodbye speech, and you know, passing over the baton, passing the torch over to Hillary, and wanting his, you know, the people who came and were with him so hard in 2008. So like, listen, this is not over. This is bigger than me. What the work that we did back in 2008 can't stop now. What you guys did for me, do for her now.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going to send you a link actually, because this woman, she has a transcript of his entire speech, and she has annotations. Okay. So she has stuff highlighted, and she talks and she gives her impressions on what he's saying with certain things. So I'm going to give you that link. So you could take a look at it, and then if you think it's interesting enough that people want to look at it, you could like link it in the low bar when you put this out. Yeah,
I'll put it in the description. The thought that I had when I was watching Obama's speech, and like I say, like I'm a huge sucker for Obama. Like I've, you know, like the two proudest votes I've cast in my entire life were the 2 times I voted for him as president. Yeah. And even with all the problems and all the imperfections and all the ways he's come up short, like I still am just nothing but a huge fan of him. And And I thought when I was watching his speech, and I tweeted a little bit about it. I tweeted after I watched the speech that we don't deserve him. And I thought, you know, because with all the bullshit that he's gone through as president, and not just like the political opposition that he's had to face, but just the fucked up shit that's happened since he's been president, with, you know, the mass shootings and police shootings and shit that's happened like in other parts of the world, acts of terrorism and all this stuff. Like, he still seems to have this optimistic view of things.
Yeah.
And I think I was watching the speech last night, and I thought, I wish that we were what he thinks we are.
Exactly.
You know?
Like, yo, he just has this view of America that part of me wishes I could have.
Yeah.
I wish I could be like really, I wish I could be more idealistic than I am. And I am not a pessimist and I'm not a misanthrope in the slightest. I like life. I like living. And, you know, I am very much kind of, you know, Scarlet, tomorrow is another day, O'Hara type of person.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm also able to look a thing in the face and call it for what it is and call it what I see it. And, you know, things are not great. I can look a thing in the eye and say that things are not great. And I wish sometimes that I could be as optimistic as he is.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't know how he does it, because there are times I'm the same way. Like, I'm not generally a pessimistic person. I've never been like a depressed person. I've always been very upbeat and very sort of even, and, you know, but I mean, whenever there's like some awful mass shooting, or whenever you turn on the news or, you know, look on the internet and like, oh, look, you know, there's another like police shooting where an unarmed black man was gunned down by a bunch of cops. I mean, that there's moments when I read about that shit, when it happens, where I'm just like, God, fuck this. You know, it just seems hopeless. It's like, because these problems keep happening over and over again.
I've had to take breaks from social media because it would definitely get to me. It would definitely make me feel like my life as a Black person really doesn't mean anything to other people that I share the planet with. And it would just make me feel really afraid, like at any moment that I step out the door to go to work, to see a friend, to do anything, you know, there's a big chance that I may not make it home. Yeah. You know, whether it's like, you know, some guy who was catcalling me and I rejected him and he gets in his feelings and, you know, physically attacks me or shoots me, you know, tries to kill me or kills me, or, you know, or it could be by the hands of a police officer, you know. So it puts you, or me, it really put me in like a really dark place. And I was talking about it with my triad partner. He's Black, you know, and we really had to talk to each other about it, because he was definitely feeling the same feelings of, you know, that I was feeling. And he was just like, nah, fuck that shit. Like, we're not going out like that. And I thanked him for that, because, you know, it was definitely not the first time where I questioned if it was worth it for me to keep living. Because, like, it's 2016. About 2 years ago, I was in a really bad depression and experiencing anxiety attacks. And I had never experienced those things before. So it made me feel I never experienced what an anxiety or, you know, panic attack. I never had those before. So, and if you've never had it, it's not fun. Because it's like if you've never had them, you think like you're gonna die, because you feel so tired. You feel like as if you were running away from like Godzilla, or if you were running away from zombies, if you're running away from raid zombies and you just managed to get away, you feel that tired, but you actually haven't been running, and your heart is just beats really, really fast for like between 5 to 15 minutes. And I was just thinking the worst. And I was on my way to work, so I was out in the street, and I'm just like, oh my God, am I gonna drop dead here? What the fuck is happening? Am I having a heart attack? Holy shit. Needless to say, I was not having a heart attack when I found out, but it's not really fun. So having that exacerbated the depression that I was in. I started, I lost, the symptoms of depression. Like, you either gain or lose like 15 pounds. And I lost a lot of weight. I wasn't able to sleep. There were days where I called out from work consecutively because I was just too scared to step outside.
Yeah.
I was a wreck. And I also, I was at a point where, I was having ideations of suicide. And knowing what that's like back then, and then getting the news of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile, it put me back in that place where I wondered if life was worth living. If is it worth continuing with life? And that's the thing that I feel like a lot of people, especially, a good amount of white people, especially ones who, people who think that, police are always justified when these things happen. They don't really take into consideration the psychological effect that these things can have on a group of people.
Yeah.
And especially a group of people with whom oppression like this has always happened and still continues to happen. They really underestimate the psychological effect that has on people. And it's weird because, studies have been done of the psychological effect that's been on Holocaust survivors and how they pass that down to their children and other generations. But yet when it comes to Black people, when it comes to Black Americans, descendants of slaves, people just like to brush that off, not thinking about, psychological repercussions of enslavement and dehumanization, and, the internalizing hatred of self from other people. And you know what I mean? And just seeing, how devalued the lives of people who look like you are in the face of the majority,
Yeah.
So that really, the recent deaths that happened really had an effect on me, and I was glad that I had someone to talk to so that I wouldn't go deep in the hole, because I was there. I was at the precipice where, I probably could have, really been depressed for a lot longer. Instead, I was, sad for a couple of days. But then I took some self-care, and that's usually when I start retweeting a lot of nerdy things on Twitter and cat pics and then shit like that.
It helps.
Yeah. People, shit on like, oh yeah, going online and passing around all these cat pictures when you're supposed to be working and shit like that. But like, people don't understand sometimes how effective that can be to really helping to level people out, especially if they're on the precipice of, of feeling really low. So yeah.
I know that it's been very, very helpful to me as a white person, and I would recommend this to any of my fellow white folks who are watching, who who feel like emotionally affected by stuff like this. Just imagine how much worse it would be if you were a member of the group that is affected. I mean, that's what I always try to keep myself in mind of, because it does occasionally, like especially with the Alton Sterling and Philando Castile killings and all the, all the ones that came before. I mean, there's times when it feels overwhelming, when it feels like how much longer is this going to happen, and how much longer are we going to let this happen until we fucking actually try to do something about it. And I remind myself, if I feel like this as a white person who has never had to fear anything from police. And I've never had like a super cozy relationship with the police. Like I've never been like a huge, cop
Yeah.
booster, but I've been pulled over for speeding. I've been pulled over for having a tail light out. I've been pulled over in my car and now in my truck for all kinds of reasons ever since I first started driving. I've never, ever, ever, ever felt in fear for my life because there was a cop around, ever. And so I have no idea what that feels like. So if these sorts of things make me feel depressed, upset, hopeless for a time, I mean, I have no idea what it's like for people who, see themselves in the victims of these crimes.
I think that's the reason why we run into so many problems when it comes to like race conversations and things like that, is because a good amount of people aren't emotionally impacted.
Yeah.
But they think that gives them some sort of authority over people who are not just emotionally impacted, but who are impacted as being part of that group, and they think that when we say you can't know how that feels because you will never experience, you haven't experienced it, so you can't ever know how it feels, they think that that's an attack on like their intelligence or something like that. And then they completely shut down. And it's like, no, I'm not attacking your intelligence. I'm not attacking your ability to understand the words that are coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can't understand what I'm saying. I'm saying that there is, you don't have a reference of understanding from having experienced something. Because you can understand, like I can understand, when someone talks, let's say if a rape survivor talks to me about their experience being raped, I can understand it because, I have a college degree and I understand, context, clues, I get that.
Right.
So I can understand what they're saying, but I can never understand on a level of their experience, feeling, violated physically, mentally, emotionally, having to deal with, going to the police and undergoing a rape kit test and feeling like, my body's being violated all over again because they have to take specimens and samples and ask me questions. So I have to explain to them what happened. So I feel like, having the feeling of, going through a rape all over again. Even saying those, I can get sort of a mental picture, which will elicit some empathy in me.
Yeah. But
I still don't have a clear enough reference of understanding because I've never experienced it for myself. And that is okay to say. That is okay to recognize. You are not going to deeply know things because you're not in a position to experience them.
Yeah.
And really feel the hopelessness of having your life devalued in the eyes of the majority, of feeling that the majority sees you as less than human, and so they will find, and so any means is used to rationalize and justify why horrible things happen to you. And not only that, not only to rationalize and justify those things happening, but bring it all to have it seem like it's your fault, that you are the cause of these things happening to you. Like you can understand it. You can understand what's coming out of my mouth, and you'll have a picture of it. And, you can try, it'll make you feel a certain way, definitely, because you've worked on establishing that sort of empathy, not even sympathy, empathy.
Yeah.
But you also recognize that this thing has never happened to me, or I am not a part of this group who experiences these things. So there is a frame of reference that I personally will not understand fully. Doesn't mean you're stupid. Doesn't mean you can't, you can't feel, you won't, feel empathy for me and understand why we feel the way we feel as a group. But there is a more broad range of understanding that comes with experiencing something. And that's the thing that like a good amount of white people, I don't want to say a lot, but yeah, a good amount of white people who feel like they have authority to speak on race issues from, the more colorblind post-racial position.
Mm-hmm.
That's the frame of reference that they will never have and not understand, because they're not part of a group that experiences these types of things. And that's not a racist thing to say. That's not even a taboo or even a bad thing to say. I'm just calling it what it is. And to have people, like Thunderfoot hit me on Twitter condescendingly asking me, like, what things as a white man will I not experience or have to deal with, that you deal with, being black, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, and I tweeted back at him, but I'm sitting there like, are you serious? like, really?
Yeah, I know. Can you imagine anything more fucking clueless? Like,
and not
where
even
do you
like,
want to start?
And not just clueless, but just like willfully smug and arrogant and just ignorant. Like, you're really going to sit up here and assume authority over shit that you will never ever truly know, because you will never experience it. And for that's a main reason why I made the decision to really not get into like video responses and exchanges with people like him on YouTube anymore. Like, after the last video I made to like Gary Edwards, cleaning the rancid mail off my plate, which still gets a lot of downvotes, and I still get the occasional like, "Oh my God, you're so racist," comment on that video. It's useless for me to have responses with these people as if I'm going to have a meaningful exchange of ideas with them. I'm not. Just like, thinking that, I would have a meaningful exchange with Sargon of Akkad, or even like with the Amazing Atheist. Like, because sometimes I think some of my subs or friends think that I should probably debate them or do video responses to videos that they made. I heard that the Amazing Atheist made another 24 or 27 questions or answers for Black people video, and I'm just like, whatever. Like, my time is precious. It's 2016. I don't have time to explain to people who don't give a fuck, and it's like people think that that when people like TJ make videos like that they're entitled, or people who think that way and who come at me in a certain way, they think they're entitled to a response, and it's like, no, you're not. And, for me not responding to them, apparently I'm against free speech and, and, debates and exchange of ideas and shit like that. And it's like, no, why the fuck am I going to waste my time or waste, a set of tweets going back at you when you don't give a fuck? And granted, I'm all for the exchange of differences of ideas and points of view and things like that, but there are certain things that are just point blank is what it is, that I'm not going to debate. And if you're going to sit up here and debate with me that in America or even the West, that we are post-racial, and you think I'm going to humor you in a debate when there are all these receipts that are in direct contradiction of your subjective position, like, no, I don't have the time, I don't have the desire, and I don't have the brain cells to waste. Like, go on with that.
Well, and you know, I've found in my experience that it's sort of like the saying, the only way to win with a toxic person is not to play. I mean, when you just don't respond to them, they have no idea what to do with that, because they're so tuned in to the conflict and to, you know, everything's an argument, everything's a debate, even though they don't like actual debates. They like yelling at each other and you know, poning people and doing like roast videos of people, but they don't actually fare too well in actual debates. But they're so tuned into that mindset that, like, when people make videos about me, I don't even watch them. Like, and people, I think some people find that hard to believe, that when someone makes a video about me that I don't watch. I almost never watch any of them, because life's too fucking short.
Exactly.
To spend 15, 25, 30, sometimes 40 minutes or more sitting there watching someone willfully misunderstand shit that I said and engage with my arguments or my ideas in complete bad faith.
Yes, exactly.
You know, like, first of all, when did I say I was here for a debate? I never fucking said that.
Yeah, but you know, you're just your existence and just you making a video just means that, you know, that everything is up for debate, because this is the internet and you're on social media and da 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 da, and it's like, not really, no. Like, I'll even say it on my Facebook sometimes when I'll put down an opinion. I'm like, don't at me about this. Don't debate me on this. You know, and I know that's, you know, I say that, and I also know that will inspire people to want to debate me, because, you know, being an argumentative asshole, contrarian, is still in season on the internet.
Oh,
sadly.
Fuck yes.
You know, and it's like, and, you know, everything is up for debate because you put it out there on social media for everyone to see. And it's like, I get where that mindset comes from, but I also know that it's an entitled mindset. And what people don't understand is that, yes, you have the freedom to say what you want. I have the freedom to engage or not engage. And, you know that whole not engaging part, I think that's the other side of freedom of speech that not a lot of people use enough. You know, like, yes, you can speak, but should you speak at this time? Should you say this thing? Like, you know, like, way too many people are invested in this idea of, yes, I can do whatever I want. I can say whatever I want. If I want to debate you, I can, and I will. If I want to respond, I can, I will. And it's like, yeah, you can respond. You can do whatever the fuck you want. The question is, should you do it at this time?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, it's like I've seen this tweeted and retweeted so many times. Shutting the fuck up is like the best thing. Is often, it's never not a bad idea. Sorry for the double negative. It's never not a bad idea, and it's free. You know,
exactly.
So I think it's because of how the internet is structured. You know what I mean? Anybody could be a keypad warrior. Like, oh my God, I have this freedom, and I can hide behind these usernames, and, you know, not even have an avatar. But I have an avatar of an anime character and some, you know, crazy name, and just be and you can just be an e-warrior and just say whatever I want and just call this angry black bitch all the angry black bitches and whores and shit. Like, I got called a whore last night on Twitter because I told this guy that, you know, that his viewpoint that there are no, you know, black women who are comic book creators, and that the demographic of black women who buy comics isn't big. And I'm just like, that's patently false.
Yeah.
And he just kept tweeting me just to say that, oh my God, it's small. It's not a huge demographic. And I'm like, it is, but you're obviously just willfully ignorant and uninformed. And I said, bye. And he's like, oh, eat a dick, whore. Yeah, let's go then. I'm like, damn. I'm like, yo, damn, really?
Well, these are the people that want to have rational discussions.
Exactly. And these are the motherfuckers who are just so rational and logical and science for the win. But when you're just like, but when you look at them and are just, like hashtag boy bye, then it's, it all comes back to name calling. Like, oh, you're just an SJW and you believe in censorship and, you're just angry. You're just an angry black bitch and you're the real racist one, and yeah, eat a dick whore. And it's like, God damn, really? Y'all mad? Why? What is it? I just said no. I'm not gonna debate you on anything because it's a fucking waste of time, and you're not entitled to me responding to you. Like, go find something else to do.
You create an environment where it pays more to be a prick.
Exactly. That's exactly what's how it is. Like the environment is just so toxic. It's like being a toxic prick. Being an anti-feminist, being racist, just being a bigoted asshole. Period, is very lucrative online and in social media. I don't have the energy for that. I don't have time for that. I'm 36. Like, come on.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it too. I'm just, I don't have time for it. I make YouTube videos that I actually care about and put work into. Yeah. I don't have time to fucking, watch somebody jerk off and then like try to offer a serious response to people that I think are just jerk offs.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have time. Like, maybe a good year ago, a year or 2 years ago when, I was just starting to put videos out there. Oh yeah, I definitely had the energy. And especially back then, I was still sort of in like this atheism 101 thing where, I was just like, yes, I am starting to really accept the fact that I don't believe in God, because it took me a while to get there. And then when I finally got there, I was like, yes, and just becoming more secure of myself in that identity, and especially, being that, the majority of my family they're still religious. I grew up, Baptist. So, and just because I'm not, they still are, and having to navigate those spaces as someone who is just, newly coming out and really trying to, be in their own. And I went through, like I said, my atheism 101 phase. And thankfully, because of other people, other non-believers and believers that I was around at the time, who had a much larger, who had more broad knowledge when it came to history and politics and stuff like that, that inspired me to stay on top of always. I'm a nerd. I'm always going to stay on top of learning. But it inspired me to continue to stay on top of things so that I didn't come off sounding stupid, because that's actually the thing that I hate. I hate if I am not sure of something, I do not say it. If I'm unsure of like a certain thing, like I don't put that out there because, I don't like to have to delete a tweet, and I hate to, I just hate saying if I ever said anything that was uninformed and it was about a particular group and like it really hurt that group, I would just I'd be mortified, So, so thankfully I had people around me who had more nuance, and they just knew more and when I go out of their way to know more so that they don't sound like idiots. So I benefited from that, because now I know how to deal with YouTube, new atheism, and all the bullshit that comes with that. And I'm just like, oh God, really? And because someone will say stupid shit about Islam and Muslims, and I'll be like, well, actually, hashtag, and I'll be accused of, like, oh, religion is religion that, you know, because I'm Black. So obviously
Yeah.
I'm still religious, right? And I'm just
Sure.
like, actually, I'm an atheist, but I mean, you know, I guess apparently you have to be religious if you are against, atheists being bigoted to Christians or Muslims and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's just like, there's just so many things that I just don't get. It's like, oh my God, you know, you guys make careers out of being like, online careers of wanting to be seen as the logical and rational motherfuckers, and you just felt the most illogical and irrational shit. It's like, how Sway? So, like God. So I've had to adapt, the stance of Black Panther. I don't care.
Hey, let's before we wrap this up, because we've been talking about like some really serious heavy stuff, which is awesome, but let's bring it back to some nerdy stuff right here at the end. Did you see the trailer for the Luke Cage series?
Oh my God. Yes, I did.
What'd you think?
Oh, it was fucking awesome. I
know,
loved it.
right?
It was awesome. It was the right choice of music. Like, if I could go back and just like keep unliking just to like that trailer again, I would do that. It's just so good. It's so good. And like, we have to wait until like fucking October, technically.
Yeah.
End of September it comes out, and I'm just like, why do we have to wait so long? Like, damn it. But that was awesome. So I can't wait for Luke Cage. It's gonna be so good. It's gonna be so good.
I'm really anxious for it too, because I thought the Jessica Jones series was awesome. I thought it was even better than Daredevil, and I thought Daredevil was like just
Of course.
I love Daredevil.
Yeah, Daredevil was good, and then like Jessica Jones, it had like a bit of a slow. I can't even say a slow burn, because every episode got significantly better.
Yeah.
But I can say definitely for me, I had to take my time with it. I couldn't binge watch it like everyone else, because I watched the first episode and then I had to take a fucking day. I was just like,
yeah.
I'm just like, okay, so if this is the type of stuff that's going to be going on, like, I need a day to process what I just watched. Like, seriously. And, I'd watch a couple of episodes a day and then, take my time and process it. And it was just really good. So I think I have very high hopes for Luke Cage. They have a good cast going for them. They have good writers. It's in good hands. I think it would be in good hands.
My thing with Luke Cage during the Jessica Jones show, it was a little bit like I remember hearing one of the writers of the Justice League cartoons say that they had to be careful how often they used Batman, because if they put Batman in every show, then everybody will just want to follow Batman. And I felt like, because like, I mean, not to take nothing away from Jessica, because I thought she was just fantastic, and I thought the whole show was amazing, and it was obviously her show and her story, but like every time Luke Cage would show up, I'd be like, Luke Cage, and when he would leave, I'd be like, oh, where's Luke going? Like I wanted Luke to. I wanted him to be around more.
Man, I hope Luke's all right. But I definitely was able to focus on Jessica. Definitely, it was definitely her show.
Yeah, and it had to be.
Weird to me was how he would like use his powers, because he just made it look. Every time he fought, he just made it look so effortless.
Yeah.
And I'm like. And people had jokes on him for days, because they were like, oh my God, Luke is such a lazy fighter. And I'm like, you guys are right. At the same time, I can kind of understand it, because if you have unbreakable skin, it's just like unbreakable skin and super strength, and you're super durable. You're just like, what do I really have to, invest in?
Exactly.
Really, but at the same time, like, I kind of feel like if I was ever a character that had super strength, I would still invest in like knowing martial arts and shit, just to really drive the stake in people's hearts. And that's what killed me about the Luke Cage trailer, because again, it's like, this motherfucker is such a lazy fighter, but like, yes, I love this, because it's like, what can y'all really do to me? Especially when he was just like,
oh, I loved it.
oh, like, I just gotta, yeah, like, you see all these holes in my hoodie? I'm pissed, but like.
Oh yeah, I thought it was awesome. I love like when he put the hood up and he fucking took the door off the car. Oh my god.
Oh
It was
god.
awesome. It was awesome.
Pressed up against the guy and then wrapped the damn car door around him. Like, I'm like, yes.
Oh yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. I was just like that was my of all like the stuff that came out of Comic-Con, like I thought that was my favorite thing because
yeah, that was actually my favorite trailer. And
yeah.
I saw the I saw the trailer for the Flash season 3, and that's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that. And I mean, there were definitely other trailers that were good. I liked the Justice League trailer.
So did I actually. I liked it a lot better than I thought I would.
Because again, I could definitely see myself buying Batman v Superman, mainly because Ben Affleck actually exceeded my expectations as Batman. Like, it's his. Like, I'm okay with that. Especially if it's not with Christian Bale. And in a way, I'm glad because he's actually smarter about it because he puts the thing, he uses something on his neck in the costume to make his
to change his voice.
Instead of, doing a Christian Bale, like, where is this trigger? like, you don't need that, like, you don't have to do that to your voice and making yourself sound like you have throat cancer. And for me, Justice League, the best parts are when I saw Cyborg.
Yeah, Cyborg looked good.
When Bruce met Barry,
he
threw the batarang, and Barry did the Spider-Man thing where he looked and had enough time to see it coming. He looked at it, he looked there, looked at it, looked there, looked at it, and then grabbed it. Like, I love that. And I need friends. I thought that was funny. And also, the best part for me was Jason Momoa as Aquaman. Like, hey, I'm gonna just drink Jack Daniels and just go off into the sea because I'm Aquaman.
It does seem like because it seems like they've tried in the comics for the last 20 years to really make Aquaman cool. Because they feel self-conscious about like the Super Friends Aquaman, where it was like, and he talks to fish. And it seems like with the Jason Momoa version, it's like I think they've finally gotten there where you can actually say, oh, actually Aquaman looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that they've done that. I think they've done that with the comics recently too. Because at first I was like, oh, Aquaman, this motherfucker just speak to fish and shit like that. But then I read Blackest Night when they gave him, the black ring reanimated him. Yeah. And he was just killing motherfuckers. And he was just like, I am still your king. And he did that shit. And he reached out to like all the sharks and the seals and the fucking sharks and not even just like regular sea creatures, like fucking dead sharks and dead seals and dead otters, fucking killing everybody. And he's like, yes, bitch, I'm still your king. Like, yeah, okay. Jeff Johns is pretty much the reason why Aquaman in the comics is a badass now.
Yeah.
Because not too long ago, before they did Rebirth, like when they redid Justice League again, and the Justice League were gonna fucking like do something, and they were gonna do something that would affect Atlantis, and Aquaman basically had to beat all their asses, which he did. And he was just like, look, I told you motherfuckers I was gonna handle it, but you're not listening. So just take this. Take these beatings, sit right here. I'll be right back. King of the Seven Seas. So between Jeff Johns writing it and Ivan Reis was doing like the art at the time, which was really good.
Yeah.
Aquaman is definitely something in the comic books again. So I think people have more than enough material to like leave the Super Friends stuff alone.
Yeah.
They don't have to go back to that stuff anymore. Or even, with the whole, yes, I had a hook for a hand and a mullet. Like, you guys don't have to go back there anymore.
Yeah, I remember that. That was when I was still like really super into comics in the mid '90s. I was like, damn, they gave him a hook hand. Like, I
Yeah,
guess that's badass, but
I mean, I guess, but I'm like, fuck else? What the fuck is did y'all just figure out what the fuck else is he gonna do but talk to the fish and then catch fish and eat it? Like, what the fuck?
yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, and then he's like Namor, where he has to get back in the water after a certain time.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm like, damn, is that on?
Oh boy. Well, like I said earlier, we could do this
Yeah.
all night, but I guess we should.
But that trailer, sorry, before we go,
Yeah,
that
no,
trailer
go for it.
was good. The Wonder Woman trailer was good.
Yeah, the Wonder Woman trailer was good.
Yeah, it's a bit lacking in color, like people of color. But since I am a diehard Wonder Woman fan, I will still watch it, of course.
I mean,
and then of course, I had my doubts about Gal.
Yeah.
But I realized that I was just being superficial because I was looking for like a bikini or a figure model to do Diana, like physically wise.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all good. Because at first I was like, damn it, Zach, you casted, the pretty slim chick, and Diana is very beautiful, but she is not that skinny.
Right.
I felt like I was coming off too elitist, and I gave Gal a chance, and I liked it. I love when she came in BB's S. I was
yeah.
Oh, yes.
Like, what?
Wow. Went back like this, and then she was just like, ah! I was sitting in my chair. I was just like, okay, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, we could just keep talking about this all night, but I know we got things to do. So.
Exactly. I got things to do. You got things to do. So everybody watching, if you for some reason you don't know who FoxyJazzabelle is before you watch this, I got all of her information linked in the down below bar. Go check her out if you have not been exposed to her wonderful presence before this. Foxy, it was awesome. We definitely should do this again sometime.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Black Panther and Harley Quinn.
Yes.
They're friends.
Yes. Side note, by the way, if you guys aren't reading her series by Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor, what are you doing with your life? It's very good.
All right.
And
so
also reading Black Panther by Tanisha Coates because it's the shit.
Oh man, I need to catch up on that. I've been wanting to read that ever since I heard that he was writing. And now Roxane Gay's going to do it too, right?
Yeah, she's doing it's like a side story. It's called it's going to be World of Wakanda, which is going to focus on the Dora Milaje. Woo!
Oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah, I'm going to have to catch up on that. I've been catching up in my comics on my Kindle a lot lately cuz it's just easier.
Oh, so, yeah.
I'm going to have to add that to my reading list. So yeah, thanks everybody for watching. FoxyJazzabelle, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
Bye.